Good afternoon. I call to order the August 6, 2021 Student Achievement and District Instructional Performance Committee meeting. Members of the public who wish to speak may do so by clicking the chat button. Now, the chat feature will be open for your request for 5 minutes. Please submit your name, your affiliation to district, your school community, your topic, and your contact information if you want a direct response to any questions you may have. All right, we'll begin with our first agenda item. All of our committee members are here. The first item was regarding an assignment given by, I believe, Board Member Morowski about gender-neutral graduation gowns. And if you guys want to discuss, or maybe we can get feedback from the leadership team as to how that works in different schools. I know different schools don't have a gender-specific graduation organization, and some do. And I didn't really know the history around that.
I think most of the graduation gowns, the colors are delineated by the school colors. So at one time, just one example, at Woodward, the girls would wear white and the guys would wear the royal blue. We did switch that a few years ago. So everybody wears the royal blue and we give a white sash. But you're right, there are still some schools that stay in those separate colors, boys and girls. I'm sure we can have a discussion with the high school principal.
Any committee members have any comments or feedback about that? I'm okay with the gender neutral and people picking whatever color they want, or even having one color for everybody. Board member Wendy.
Yeah, I'm also supportive. I was just thinking this could be a chance to learn what other districts do. You know, are there any organizations out there, GLSEN or others, that put out recommendations on things like this? You know, like it may be that there's no complicated problem to solve. We can just do it. But if there are questions to resolve, I'd at least be interested in, you know, what other schools across the country do, and are there any organizations putting out suggestions or guidance?
Committee member Bolton.
Not surprisingly, I see this as an issue that is current and interesting, but in the scheme of things right now, I'm not sure, unless it's just a symbolic effort. I think it's reasonable not to say all the girls are going to wear white and all the boys are going to wear purple. My two colors, thank you. But I do not want to lose the school colors. That is just, in a communal way, as important as the other issue of gender neutral, boys, girls, whatever, because that's their community. And no matter in this town, that still matters, and it's a positive thing about colors instead of a negative kind of gang thing about colors. So I think, and I would advise each school to try to figure it out. Mm-hmm. But you know, I want to keep the colors. I will regret, though. I'll say this: the school people are going to have to work it out based upon the fact that I would still expect to see an A when the graduation folks are standing, you know, the way that you saw, or a Withrow, the black and the orange, whatever. So to the degree that you can kind of keep the theatrics of it, great. Gender neutral, sure, but keep your school colors.
So maybe confer with the administrator of the school and see how that, okay. All right, so we'll have feedback maybe in a few months.
I can get you some written feedback in a couple of weeks.
Okay, that's even better. Okay, thank you. All right. Any other comments on that, committee member?
Purple and white.
Sorry. All right, College Credit Plus. Miss Reed Violet, is that right? Yay! I got it.
That was the best pronunciation
Thank
I've heard
you.
of that last name in a long time. Yeah, so thanks for inviting us back. I just wanted to give sort of a full picture of where we were after this last year. We also have gotten a lot of recognition nationally and also within the state of Ohio. Single enrollment in CCP. So I mentioned it, but we'll be presenting at the National Association of Concurrent Enrollment Partners in October on our efforts to expand CCP school enrollment and eliminate gaps in participation. We also have some attention from the Ohio auditor, who's looking at across the state of Ohio, how do we eliminate gaps in this experience for historically excluded populations. With that being said, I do want to just launch into big picture problems we're trying to address with dual enrollment. The next slide, Rob. We have a degree attainment issue in our urban core. This number comes from Strive Partnership, but essentially our 6-year graduation rate of students who pursue higher education is 26%. So that means the vast majority of students in the urban core who go on to pursue higher education aren't earning that credential within. We're also trying to eliminate the gap between enrollment intentions and enrollment actions. So if you look at National Student Clearinghouse data versus our 3E data, there's a 23% gap between students who say they want to go to college and those who actually end up enrolling in. We also have a huge gap in opportunity across the district in who's offering. So there are 6 schools, this is last year's rate, but there were 6 schools that had no CCP options within building. And then there's 3 key populations where we see big gaps. Overrepresentation of some groups, underrepresentation of others. And those are our African American or Black identified students, our male students, and our students who are identified as economically disadvantaged. So those are the things that we're focusing on with CCP. And I apologize, it's prettier in print than it is up on the screen. National data, just as a reminder of why Ohio is moving towards CCP, why we as a district believe in our office believe in dual enrollment, is that it really links to degree attainment. So there's a 25% increase depending on the study that you look at of students who participated in dual enrollment actually obtaining their degree compared to other groups. 15% positive correlation with college access and enrollment, 14% correlation with college readiness, and a 14% positive correlation in credit accumulation. There's other positive effects too, high school graduation, high school attendance, all of these other sorts of things. And I have a link in the PowerPoint to the big white paper report on national statistics. The next thing is state statistics. So this is going to Ohio's tracking of how are students actually being retained who participated in dual enrollment. And you can see it's really high. So students who have started or have gained experience in dual enrollment when they matriculate to college are more likely to be retained semester than their like peers. And then finally, we started to track this for Cincinnati Public School students with our partner Cincinnati State. So of the 33 in-building options we have across the district, or that we had in 2020, 2021, 26 of those were facilitated. We also have partnerships with Sinclair. Clark State is being onboarded as a partner with Campbell this fall, and UC facilitates a few of these partnerships. But one thing we've been really interested in is like beyond national data, beyond state data, like what is actually happening to CPS students who participated in dual enrollment, and are they being impacted? So on the next slide, it's our data from Cincinnati State. If we compare like peers who didn't participate in building or on the college campus with those who have gained college credit through CCP experiences, there's really about a 21, I don't know. I'm nervous, so the math is a little difficult, but 55% of our students are retained from semester to semester when they in an dual enrollment. When they participated in their high school building, we're looking at a 71% retention semester 1 to semester 2 of college. And then when they participated either on the college campus, it's closer to 81%. That's within Cincinnati State. So those that matriculate to Cincinnati State, that's the chart on the left. The chart on the right are students who've gone to any institution. And that's National Student Clearinghouse data pulled through Cincinnati. So about 86% of students, it's an 86% persistence rate for students who participated in CCP experiences through CPS who've gone to matriculate to college. So that's, again, just big picture stuff, why we're focusing on this, why we're hoping more students can gain experience in dual enrollment. The next slide talks about big picture numbers, how many students are participating. So we've had 622 students that are participating Last year, that was a 26% growth from the prior year. 91% of our students are earning the credit that they attempt. So it's a really high success rate for those students. 4% withdrawing, 5% failing. It was over 1,400 courses that were taken, resulting in 4,500 credit hours and close to $1 million in tuition savings for students and families. And then just talking about our continued strategies and interventions. So from 19 to 20, we really focused on 3 key schools. Those were Aiken, Taft, and Schroeder. My position was created, so a focus on CCP really started in 2019, 2020. In 2020, 2021, we launched a grant to support teachers being credentialed in this space. We also started some really in-depth data review. In 2021, 2022, we will have 12 new classes launched across our buildings. And then by 22, 23, we'll have an additional 10 in adding on. The next one talks about the impact of all of those decisions. So we went from 461 to 622 participants between 1920 and 2021. We saw a 2% shrink in our socioeconomic gap from 1920 to 2021. So as we look at our district's demographics versus the demographics of those participants, are starting to see those gaps shrink a bit, especially in economically disadvantaged identities. We moved from 200 students that were participating who are identified as Black to 273 participating, 154 male participants to 190. We hope to continue to shrink those gaps. We hope to continue to grow our participation in key patients who, again, have been historically excluded from these high rigor, but also high benefit opportunities. This is our participation snapshot. So you can see those 3 schools that we really focused on, which were Schroeder, Taft, and Aiken. Between 1920 and 2021 saw a huge jump when we started to embed those courses in their building. And so we know, again, from that deep data dive, that our populations we're trying to target are only participating when it's offered in their space. So an example of that is when we looked at data from 1920, we had 49 students that both identified as Black and male. 40 of them only participated when it was offered in their building. 9 participated on our call. So that's been our strategy and what we'll continue to implement. The next is just breaking down success rate by building. So one thing we'd like to focus on in the coming year is those buildings where it's less yellow. How do we increase that yellow? How do we make sure that the students that are attempting these courses are being successful? We have a couple champions in this space: Woodward, Aiken, Walnut Hills, Schroeder, really doing great work in the students that are starting these courses, succeeding in these courses. But there's some room to grow in our other spaces. How do we academically support the schools that aren't seeing such high success rates, credit accumulation? And then this is our gap snapshot on the next page. So again, you can see that we're starting to shrink that gap between district demographics and education, especially in economically disadvantaged identities, and also our Black African American student population. Our male population, it actually increased the gap a little bit in the last academic year. So that's something we'll continue to look at and try to focus on. And then the rest is just dollars. So dollars and cents. These are the schools that our students have taken classes through, the amount of credit hours they've earned, how many students it was, what the average tuition savings was with that particular partner, if you consider the cost per credit hour to the credits earned. That's it. We've got some work to do still, so we'll still focus on closing gaps, supporting teachers who are part of our pipeline. There is in this linked presentation, if you're curious, our growth chart. So it goes over what classes are offered in each building, what is offered this year that wasn't offered last year, what will be offered, or what we anticipate being offered based on the teachers that we recruited and supported that process. We also want to acknowledge that this past year's growth of 26% could very well be linked to the pandemic and students moving to online learning. And if they're going to be doing online learning, might as well do it through a college online learning. So we will be continuing to monitor the pandemic effect. Is this something that we can continue to grow? How do we continue to grow at the key population?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Comments from committee members?
You go first, Ben.
You sure?
Yep, because I know he's got 14 questions.
I have like two.
And I'll just say, no way. In this stuff, you're worse than.
I think this is really exciting. I think it's wonderful to see that. I haven't seen these kind of community level statistics on college completion before. And I just wanted to first say how helpful and clarifying I thought that was. I also think it's great that we're tracking on equity gaps, like looking at differences by race, differences by gender, differences by income level, and being clear-eyed about that and trying to influence it. I think that's great. I think there's so much in here that's interesting. I think that the first question I wanted to ask is just as you all look at this upcoming year, what's the most important priority from or top two, or just even top three?
So for me, I don't want to speak for
Well,
the
we've talked about this.
So priority one is making sure that these classes are well resourced, that they have high rigor, so that they're following the same curriculum as the college, and that we're accurately placing students into these classes and supporting students through these classes. So those, I know it's probably like 3 priorities, but those would be the things that we're really focused on.
And so are there goals or outcomes you have, like the things you want to see true because of that by the end of the year?
So we'll continue to monitor these measures as our success. So where are our gaps? So that'll be a measure of success. Has implementing these 12 new classes in any way affected our 3 historically excluded identities participation? That's one measure of success. We'll continue to monitor success rates. So how many students are adequately completing credit in each building, and have we supported teachers, have we supported students, do we have the resources to make sure that that 91% isn't just happening at Walnut Hills or just happening at Aiken, but it's happening across all of our buildings.
Are there one follow-up question there? So are there targets you're shooting for?
I would just, for the percentage gaps, I believe I identified in my yearly goals, like a shrink in those gaps with each academic year. And then as far as success rates, I don't know that we've pinpointed, just that we'd like to see that number equitably distributed across all of our students.
Yeah.
So,
And why 2%?
Because we were able to shrink it for 2% from this last academic year to this academic year, and so we feel that that's a reasonable goal to aim for as we continue to analyze these participation rates.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. I mean, I think that some things that I think matter a great deal is that we're clear on what our values are, and I think we are, and that we're clear on what we want to make true in the world for kids. And I think that means that we have an outcome and we set a target. And we may not hit it, but like we're going to try. And I think it's important that those targets have some rationale behind them. You know, I think everything you shared on that front makes sense. I think the question I would leave you all with, because I'm going to have fewer than 14, so that I can prove you wrong, is just, you know, I think it may be the 2% is exactly the right target. And I think your rationale that we've done it before so we know it's possible certainly makes sense. I think the question I want to know is, like, what district has shrunk it the most anywhere in the country? And could we do that? Or even a little bit more than that? I don't know. Maybe not, but we should have that conversation. You know, I think we've got wonderful people working here and a ton of federal resources. And these are really important things. And I think we should be ambitious. And I just want to say thank you for all the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
One thing I would like to add, and wasn't mentioned in this, but is relevant, I think, is that there are a ton of federal resources, but CCP largely in our budget is sponsored by an external state grant. So the funding for teachers, the resources for supplies, being able to anticipate that we will have those leveraging resources the following year to build on. We are so lucky we got awarded, so we got audited, got a stellar review, and got re-awarded our upcoming year for our EOEC grant for the state, which is funding our CC aspects. In fact, it was funding Danny for all of last year. And so we're trying to also be realistic in what we're setting forth, knowing that we have to also find another funding line for this type of work because that grant ends and cannot be renewed for this coming academic year 22-23. So trying to keep that in mind as well as we're navigating that. So really great points about like we're remaining comfortable and trying to say like, yes, we did too, the pandemic, the other aspects, but also very hopeful and proactive about how can we move the needle even further with what we do have in place in the advocacy.
Board members, I don't know if you met Emily Maroney. I'm not sure. She's
Hi,
our new
Emily.
college manager.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And she just started like last April, so you may not have had a chance.
I'm 30.
Nice meeting you. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah,
That was
sure.
helpful.
Yeah, thanks. This is good. Couple things from a staff standpoint, building by building. How many of our staff in each building are participating in this?
So we have 16 CC coordinators, so one in each 7 through 12 building. And those are taking extended time to educate students about the option, guide them through the process to register, ensure that their rosters are accurate. And then as far as teachers that are teaching through the program, I can look at my roster really fast. I want
That'd
to
be great.
yes.
Sure.
Some of the work of that grant was to get more teachers credentialed and in the position to be able to deliver directly from our school.
So I currently have 27 teachers that are instructing dual enrollment coursework. And then we have, I think currently 16 teachers that have decided to pursue credentialing that we're sponsoring with grant dollars on a PD plan to help facilitate paying for graduate.
Has there been any resistance to this at Walnut Hills?
Walnut Hills was not written into our grant, so that
Okay.
has not been a school that we're focused on. They are offering engineering and mathematics. It's Calculus 3 are their current dual enrollment classes. One is facilitated through Cincinnati State, the other is facilitated through UC. But they've not had any expansion since 2019.
From highly academic high school is pursuing other ways than college credit plus, it would seem. Is that correct?
So within building, could be, they have, like I said, they have 3 course offerings that are dual enrollment. They also have the highest percentage of students that are participating outside of Walnut Hills in this space. So they have about 332 of our 622 students are participating in dual enrollment, and their home school is Walnut Hills. The majority of those students are taking the courses on college.
Yeah, that helps me understand this then. So the majority of the Walnut Hills kids are taking it at the campus itself, the college campus. And for the most part, our other folks, the largest percentage are taking it in-house, so to
In the high
speak.
school building.
Is it a comfort level? Is it a transportation issue?
I think it's
All of the above.
in my experience, those have been barriers to
Exactly.
being successful on the campus.
Yes.
So we could certainly do some focus groups with students as to why. But I would say our biggest learning was with Aiken, where
Of course.
where in 1920 we did not have enrollment options, and then in 2021 offered 2, and their participation went from 0 students to 30. And I do think that a lot of it is exposure, comfort level, sense of belonging, and also the barrier of getting there. I mean, I remember being 18 years old and feeling like, you want me to go to a college campus?
Sure.
And I didn't participate in these types of activities because I was in the murky middle. But I do think that when we bring something like it's cool and they're encouraged to more so than having that invisible or otherwise hurdle to get to the experience.
Thank you. And this is in addition to trying to pursue advanced placement college board stuff,
Correct.
not
Yeah.
in place of. And it has a higher degree of success, frankly, than AP would from patients. But again, you can't really claim to actually be an academic district if you're not going to have the kinds of advanced placement opportunities that kids need. Just a little bit more. I think part of I love the target, and I like to see this growth. I think it's important. I would suggest, and nobody will be surprised if they're at the board meeting or have been here a while. I would suggest your real problem starts in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, because the children are not prepared to go to high school in a rigorous way. They may be socially, they may be emotionally, whatever, and because everybody there does a great job, but from a rigorous standpoint, they're not ready. So again, the focus needs to be, and that's the same old, 4, 5, 6, and I will say again, success centers for the 7th and 8th graders will change these numbers significantly, will increase these numbers. Because the kids need that support, not just while they get here, but kids are deciding kind of where they're going and how they're going to be when they're in 5th grade. The suburbs know who's going to be taking calculus in 2nd grade, which is scary. I don't believe in that, but that's the reality. And we need to have those kinds of paths for kids if possible. So yeah, I again, and I appreciate what curriculum's done, because at least our curriculum has been increasing and improving and deepening in rigor. But that 4, 5, and 6, and then that 7th and 8th grade, they each need the success centers to look at that, the 20-some% or the 30% of the kids that really aren't ready. They need a sustained program those first couple of years. This is good.
Well, they've highlighted a couple of things that I was going to point out, but just understanding College Credit Plus a few years back, some of the struggles that we were having with College Credit Plus to getting to the schools, students feeling confident and even being able to take the class. You guys have actually tapped in, and actually it's been a big turnaround. These numbers are absolutely great. And I like to hear that we're figuring out the supports. Here, committee member Bowden, she and I both talked about the Student Success Centers, but knowing that you've all figured out how to provide those resources, because before students were just going to the campus and expected to know how to do everything with the advisor there without getting any support at all from the schools. So I commend you on understanding the need equitably, meeting the needs of each of our kids and each of their schools around College Credit Plus. So thank you for the presentation. It was great. Thank you.
Can I just say one more
Yes.
thing? And people know this too. I still maintain that we still have to have a program where if you go to high school for 5 years, you graduate with a diploma and an associate's degree. If you the state of New York does it a lot. I think that would focus our families. And to really, I would love it if the administration, if I can make an assignment, Madam Chair,
Yes.
make an assignment to explore where that is done, because there's tremendous opportunities, and our proximity to additional ed and people wanting our kids. I just think that that's something that would be really worth exploring to give the kids a future, because it blends both the career and the academic, and it gives our kids hope, and it saves money.
Danny, do you remember the number of kids who graduated?
We had 4
Mhm.
graduating with
I
an
remember
associate's
that.
degree last year.
Yeah.
The year prior it was higher. about 8. We graduated in 1920 with an associate's degree. I will say something that we're really focused on is like creating two pathways. Creating a pathway where students can actually accomplish a first semester of college while they're in high school. So we've been really intentional in our expansion of not just offering a random English class or a random math class, but like how can you offer a nice little package bow of a first semester of college within each of the spaces during college credit plus. We've also talked about Columbus City Schools does a program called Senior to Sophomore, where they focus on a student accomplishing their first year of college. It's a selective program. They cohort students in a group of 30. Those students actually go to the college campus in cohorted classes. But those are programs and initiatives that we're talking about. How do you intentionally string all of these credits together in a really impactful way so that it isn't just, I've earned 6 credit hours, but you've actually changed the amount of time it takes to earn a degree. You've changed the amount of debt the student has to go into.
Which is kind of the point, right?
Right.
That's the point of the college credit plus. So, but those students that last year, they earned those associates or certifications in 4 years. Is that correct? Okay.
And it's possible.
Yeah.
And I think that in the suburbs, they play it, and in the high achieving, like you say, the Walnut Hills, they plan their AP that way. It's just in those schools, you might place out of 2 years of college. So because of all the AP, but this is a wonderfully better, diverse way, and it's a way to also think about how initially to use Spencer, where we have on the west side, we have Cheviot, and on the east side, you've got Spencer. If you kind of make both of those be Spencer, and then those later years, we proposed that. I think Superintendent Mitchell kind of proposed that to some of the Spencer families, that what we're looking at is that how about the Spencer, since we don't have higher grades of the facility, why don't we think in terms of early college for the Spencer kids? Because now disproportionately they're going to Walnut, and that was not the original plan. And so, I mean, that's how you use the Hughes Annex or whatever eventually. But I think this is great. We are a PK 16 district, and that has to be in our messaging.
Yeah, Assistant Superintendent Murphy, can you look into, when I worked at Chatfield College, Cincinnati campus, the Brown County campus, where it's actually the main campus, those students were graduating in Brown County with the associate's degree and their actual home, but our Cincinnati campus was not. But can you?
Yeah, that's great. Actually, Chatfield was there this afternoon.
Okay,
So
okay.
they'd be interested in whatever.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah. All right. Thanks. I love all of this. I'm excited again. I was graduating yesterday, and I'm excited about this today. All right. Any more comments on this, committee members? All
I'm glad
right.
to be talking about teaching and learning.
Me too. All right. Moving on to curriculum instruction. Ms. Wolf, Ms. Morales, you're up.
So we are excited to enter this fifth year of adopting curriculum. So we speak about the need of strengthening the rigor in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. This is what we believe is necessary to do so. So gone are the days of just purchasing a textbook, but a full curriculum that we design as the content, the resources, the instructional moves, and the measurement, so that we know that our students are progressing and mastering what we have put together in school. So we have Ms. Wolf. She is our science, PE, and health manager, and we have Sarah Morales, who is our world languages manager here. What we hope will be a joint collaboration around adopting science and world languages curriculum.
So my name is Laura Wolf, thank you, Emily, that one introduction. Speaking of teaching and learning, we are very excited. Our teachers are absolutely ecstatic. So I did provide a one-pager just to sort of go our purpose of the adoption, who's participating in with us as a collaboration, where we are currently as a district in science. and where we would like to go. So currently in the CPS, we have our main curriculum divided in K-3 and 4-12. At the K-3 level, we are currently using Picture Perfect Science, which is a teacher resource book, but it does not have a scope and sequence where the lessons build upon each other. We have a wonderful Way to Schoology course created by our community partner, the Newport Aquarium. For our 4-12, we are mainly using Schoology courses that were created by CPS teachers during the pandemic when it first started. Discovery Education, which is an online program, and Gizmos as well, which is available at our grant schools identified by the EOB. We are underperforming as compared to the state at all three of the tested grade levels, fifth, eighth, and biology. But I do want to call out our biology teachers because their level, that 41%, has essentially maintained from before the pandemic up until this spring. So I do want to call out that note for the biology scores. We have our committee members identified. We have a very diverse group. I am working with Kendra to identify a few more intervention specialists and teachers who support our English language learners so that we can make sure we are choosing a curriculum that can be accessed by all of our students. We have identified our must-haves as a group, and those, number one, includes hands-on materials. We want to make science fun, engaging, exciting again. I think we have seen, especially in the past couple of years, and with the introduction of No Child Left Behind, the need for that consistent, excellent science instruction. So we've identified our must-haves as being aligned to standards. We are going to decide as a committee next week if we want to move towards a curriculum that adopts the Ohio science standards, or if we want to move in the national science standards direction. And so we're going to decide that as a group next week. And that group consists of K-3 teachers, 4-6, 7-8, high school. We have several administrators in our group as well. So we feel like we have a really good representation. But that feedback will also be available to all of the science teachers as a whole. But we have a very large group, around 50, a little over 50 people next week meeting to discuss which standards we would like to move in that direction. We are looking for on grade level work. We're looking to make sure that the curriculum we choose as a team supports all the tiers of instruction, not just tier 1, but tiers 2 and 3, so we have those intervention supports for students. And we also want to make sure that there is a digital platform component as well. We've seen in the past couple of years that digital piece is essential. It's not the be-all, but is definitely important in selecting a curriculum. I have also been talking with Columbus City Schools as well as Cleveland, the science curriculum managers over there, as well as looking at research from national organizations such as EdReports and sharing that information with our committee about the curriculum that has the best reviews from a non-biased standpoint, but also to see what the other districts in Ohio are doing for science as well. So that feedback has been important and valuable as well as we move towards adopting an awesome curriculum that meets the needs of all of our students.
So our intention then would to bring our recommendations to you in December, January time with a recommendation of adoption in February. And science or world language is a little bit different. So do you want us to do both of them?
I think we should finish the science. Are we finished with science? Yeah, we should do. We're ready to move on. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to start with a little bit of background about why our adoption is a little bit different. As you all know, the board and PLT have established that world influencers are what we are trying to create here in Cincinnati Public Schools. And world influencers need world languages, so that's why this curriculum adoption is very important for every student in our district. Adding to that, our curriculum council has developed a vision that guides everything that we do as world languages in CPS, that all students will have access to the rigor and opportunity provided by acquiring advanced intercultural awareness and proficiency in world languages. Those are both represented in our state and national standards, not just the second language acquisition, but also the intercultural awareness and competence. And so to make that vision come true for all the students that are currently enrolled in our world languages program and the students we hope will be in the future enrolled in fully articulated K-12 language programming at every CPS school, we have to have strong curriculum. And so as we've discussed, we know that that is comprised of both the content, the resources, the instructional methods, and the assessment. Now, for world languages, 3 of those are the same for everything. Our state standards are not tied to a particular language because they're based on language proficiency and the process of language acquisition, which applies to every human language, not to particular languages or vocabulary items or grammar structures. However, we have to have the right resources in hand for students and teachers to dive into the particular language of study of that class. So while our content methods and assessments would be the same across the over 50 K-12 language courses that we offer in CPS, we have 5 different program types among those and 12 different languages, which means that we will be adopting 25 separate curricula throughout this curriculum adoption to meet the needs of all of those different program types and languages. So this is why we are working through a 2-phase timeline for our adoption so that we can really vet these resources and create any materials that are needed with complete integrity for every course. Unlike our ELA, math, science, and social studies content areas, ed reports, and other organizations that vet materials do not do this for world languages. So our teachers and our committee are going to have to do all of that work from scratch to make sure that we have the absolute best resources and materials for our students. So we plan to attack these 25 courses in 2 phases. The first phase being this school year, when we would adopt for 8 of those program types, that accounts for 76% of CPS students who are currently enrolled in world language courses. And then the next year, we would continue the adoption process for the remaining 17 program types that account for 24% of CPS. We are excited beyond measure, but after feedback from my teachers and them expressing the need to have everyone's language represented, we've split it into 2, and we are hitting the ground running. We're already deep into the phase 1 and investigating materials for all of those different languages. And some folks are already starting to consider some of the things for phase 2 for next year. But we wanted to make sure that we have the capacity to do this correctly. And so as kind of a separation from the way other content areas have done it, we are using a 2-year.
So what you have in front of you is a 1-page overview of science with their proposed timeline, getting materials by winter for a complete K-12 science adoption. And then you have a 1-page overview of world languages with a timeline of adopting 8 by the end of this year and the remaining 17 by the end of next year.
All right. Comments? Questions?
I have some for
Science, but I have
science,
some
and I
for
have
language.
for foreign languages. When you talk about 25, where's the list of the 25? Did I miss it in the packet?
I can provide that easily. It basically is, I have that document and I can certainly send that out to you, but to do a quick nutshell version of it, so we have, if you take, for example, Spanish, we have 7 to 12 Spanish for native English speakers. We have 7 to 12 Spanish for native Spanish speakers. We have Spanish at the elementary level immersion, Spanish at the elementary level daily instruction, but not immersion, and then Spanish at the elementary level where they only receive it weekly or biweekly. So that's just an example for one language, how the program.
So that's how it gets to be 25.
Yes.
Is it, and how is it decided which is where? I mean, which program are you using, and do you see an equity issue there, or is this a really good equity thing where it differentiates based upon the clientele, or?
So my personal vision and that of my curriculum council is that we'd like to see every CPS student have access to world language learning, which isn't currently the case. That is something that we're working towards. We are engaging in partnerships to expand after-school opportunities to hopefully drive interest in the community and build interest at the school level to hopefully get more language programs into schools that don't have it. As far as where programs are currently located, it has been historically based on whether that school had a Vision 2020 aligned with world language learning or some type of magnet program aligned with language learning and the programming of that individual school and that community's choices.
The reason I ask this is that it is an equity issue in this district as to how far you can go grade-wise. If you're interested in a language, I mean, what high school do you go to, and which high schools actually offer all the way up to, let's say, AP or year 5, which ones don't? Which, I mean, previously part of that was that we didn't have 7 period days or 8 period days in all of our high schools. As we return to that, you have more of an opportunity to do it. But it'd be useful, Madam Chair, if we actually saw a chart of the whole district and what languages are offered where, because it is an equity issue. I think, too, this makes sense dividing this up. I think that does. How many languages do we actually teach? I know we have dozens of languages that are in our kids, but how many languages do we really teach as curriculum?
12.
Okay, the 12 languages that we teach. It'd be great to see where those are. It'd be great to see how many years any kid could follow it. Because chances are in any Title I schools, they're not getting a chance to follow that interest in language. Because we don't have it in every one of our high schools high enough for the kids. So I think this is a really interesting thing. I don't think you have to build any community support. I think the community wants their kids to have another language that they are at least somewhat proficient in. I really do, regardless of income or anything. So I think that I wouldn't spend too much time there. I'd figure out how you're going to make budget requests for staff and for curricula and the bell schedule and stuff. This is a budget issue, and you consistently are underfunded in this world language piece.
And before you move to science, committee member Bolton, I want to add, you talked about immersion, you talked about, can you also include the differences in that? And how you guys came up with that decision on what school decides on immersion, or
Excellent.
what was the other term you used that was maybe all got blended or split or instruction all day, like Fairview? I guess it's incorporated.
Yeah, they have daily instruction, but
And
it's
then
not
LEAP-
immersion. So
LEAP
that's a
is
little
similar
bit-
to that? Is LEAP Academy similar to that concept? Okay, so if you could explain how you all came up with which school you think gets what? Okay, thank you. That would be included.
Just the budget piece too, I would make sure that you're ready to do that kind of a budget request for fiscal 23, the one after this coming up, because that's the last time you're going to see any money for a while. And I think that's great.
Science, you're going to science.
My science thing is they all know how I feel about this. I would really encourage to go with both the national versus the state. We had to do that years ago because there was no health curriculum in Ohio because it was too controversial. And I would even start to think in terms of I'd start, this is where we have to go, I'd start looking at what are the international standards in science, not just the national or Ohio. Go international because that's where we have to be going anyway. But especially in the science piece, more than anything else, I think you have that international community and standards. But no, this is, I can't wait to adopt it. I hope it's just as controversial as possible because let's just do it.
I'm ready.
That's right.
Let's do it.
It's going to be a mess anyway, so do it around the holidays.
Yeah, I think first to say thank you to everybody for all the work. All very exciting. My son is a rising first grader at Hyde Park. So he had Latin this last year, and I think they're in the process of figuring out, I'm sure it's figured out now, but what so yes, his wife and I have, my wife and I have an opinion about that, but I'm not going to share that in this meeting. But I just to say we're really grateful to have a public school where he's getting exposed to. I think I had a couple of questions on the science one. I heard folks mention ed reports, and I just wanted to check that I heard it right. So one of the must-haves will be that we're all agreeing on ed reports.
I think it's important, that we're using the research that is been publicly shared from ed reports, and we have, I've shared that with the adoption committee and the adoption committee leads. But I really think as a team, we're going to decide as a team using a rubric that we've created in-house what is best for our students, but definitely taking into account the feedback from ed reports, absolutely.
And correct me if I'm wrong, ed reports it was clear that we could say all green for ELA and math because of the way the standards were aligned. With the work towards the national standards and especially international standards, there has to be a more comprehensive rubric established to be up with that.
Yeah. I think you all are more familiar with ed reports than I am. I mean, I know enough about them to know why I like the idea of ed reports, but I'm not in the details of it. I think if the proposal at the end of the day is something that isn't all green on ed reports, one thing I'd appreciate seeing is why. And with some treatment of that before we vote on it. And maybe there's a really good reason, or if not, it's just at least a question we'll have.
I can follow up right now.
We'll follow up.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, because my understanding is you're still looking at which one you're going to use, and so.
There is. So there's not currently a science curriculum from ed reports. That's all green.
All of them are mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to look on my phone earlier, and the ones I was looking at were mixed. So okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That makes sense. So then I think all of that makes sense. And as we go down the line, whenever the final proposal does come through, I will be interested in where are there differences and what's our rationale. I think my other questions were just about kind of curriculum adoption in general. I think there's such an amazing foundation in place, particularly in ELA and math, with the work that's already happened. I was just hoping for some kind of update on how do you feel like the take-up is going? Like, do you feel like teachers are using the curriculum that we've adopted? Are they using it well? Do they have the kind of training and support on it that they need? I know we talked in an earlier staff meeting about which vendor we were using to do some of that. It was Ingenuity or it was Unbounded and the title I couldn't remember. But just is that an area where we need to be doing more? Or is that an area where things are really well? Could we just hear a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. So I just want to acknowledge that last year really
was odd.
Impacted our participation. This year our focus is on information, and so we've done a lot of refreshes around professional development for both principals and teachers in the spring of last year and just in this opening week, first week back. And so I think people are excited again It's an incredibly different feel going into this year than last year. And we have some really tight benchmarks throughout the year to measure both implementation and mastery of the content this year that we haven't had in the past. So we're excited about that part because at the end of the day, the curriculum matters, but the way we implement it matters far more. And so that is our focus this upcoming year. Teachers are excited and there's a different energy level each year because they see the commitment behind the adoption cycles that we put together.
Yeah, I think this would be a request maybe I make to our chair, like over the feedback on this, but like sometime before this committee changes after January, I would love to get some kind of update on now that we're in school, in person, with an adopted ELA curriculum, with an adopted math curriculum. What is the implementation looking like? You know, are we seeing great take up with teachers? Are we seeing like really spike? Do we need to be investing in additional training and support for people? And I recognize we can't know that until school starts. But would that be appropriate or okay for the fall?
My question is to the leadership. Would you guys be able to have some type of timeline target to be able to report out on that by November?
I think November we can give you a first report. And I would love to be more comprehensive and do social studies,
Great.
Fine arts, and science. I'm sorry, not science, PE and health, just because we have tried to do the whole core content area.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
in addition to instead of thought, right? Yeah.
Yeah, in addition to
Yeah.
the ELA.
Yeah.
So it's a
I think that would make sense, especially in social studies, because it is going to be controversial, just to review. The other thing, just from a PR standpoint and whatever, never say from scratch the teachers are going to put this together or whatever, or that it's the teachers. We want our teachers to generate this. We want the standards. We want it to be in-house. I'm a true believer in that. Just be aware that the teachers know that curricularly what's adopted does have to be taught, and their cover is to be able to argue that what I'm teaching and the way I'm teaching it is part of what is adopted. It doesn't have to be letter perfect, but I'm just, with the crowd out there now, looking for things, just make sure everybody knows it's very, very much a standard. There's a process. There's a way we do this, and that the community adopts this curriculum because the board does. Teachers and the professionals write it, but we adopt it so that we get the heat and you guys don't.
Anything else?
No, just thank you.
I just have one question and some clarification. The barriers where you have the must-haves for science, are those assessed or written with direct connection to what you think the barriers are to our students meeting or either exceeding the state goals? Okay. All right. Good. All right. That's it.
What did they say? Is your timeline December?
November. It was
So for the curriculum
For adoption.
we want to have our narrowed down to top 3 areas with our recommendation by February.
Okay, that will be a new board just based upon who's resigning. So just keep that in mind. So if there's any chance to accelerate, just be thinking about it.
all right.
I have another business when we get there. Is it okay?
Oh, for other?
For other after.
Okay. Well, yeah, when we get there. Because I have one too. All right, I think we're ready for that. Before you go, Mr. Lindy, I want to remind the committee that the board had agreed to do a 90-day assessment of our current interim superintendent. And if you guys can review the 90-day, 30, 60, 90-day plan that she presented to us, so we can present something to the board as to how to review and assess and evaluate. If we can do that, actually, if you all can send me some comments before the 18th, then we'll have it for the board to look through I know September, I think, was really the timeline, but we're really trying to get started on looking at what we want to review.
I think that's really smart. This is 18th of August.
Yes, I think that's a board meeting after the 9th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to get some things out to present to the board so that we can all decide together.
And I think that's very smart. I think I would reiterate what we said, what Superintendent Mitchell left us when she did that multi-year thing, and you resent it to us.
I did, not sure how that would align up with the 90 days. And
Well,
I mean, I don't know, because we're not really in
I'm
school.
just saying, so, because
Okay,
we need to do it in part according to the 90 days,
okay,
but we can't have the interim figure out our own evaluation. So it's like, maybe that would help us frame it so that we can fit this into any one of those years. I mean, I don't think all of them work, but there might be one. If you could resend that to us.
I'll resend it, I think this was year 2, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
If you'll send those 4, I think that would
Okay.
be great. You remember that, Ben?
Yeah, I do. The framework.
Yeah.
Well,
Not the extensive one, but just
Sure.
this was across the top of pages, like
Yeah.
these 4 things are.
What how hard a date is that 18th?
It's not hard, because I think our timeline, will be in September, so it could be.
The reason I'm asking is that I'm going to be out next week, and if we could push it an extra week.
To the third meeting in August, we have a third meeting in
Yeah,
August?
we have, 23rd.
Okay, let's
Like
do
a
the
couple days
23rd.
later.
We'll push for 23rd.
Makes
Let me
sense.
get that.
If only if that's okay with everybody.
No.
I
We've got other things to.
don't know what you're talking about.
And I'll resend the format.
That'd be great.
All
That's
right.
great.
Okay, you have the other 2.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to ask Emily, I think, at some point, it certainly doesn't have to be in this meeting, but I would love to hear what reflections the Summer Scholars team has on impact against learning loss. I thought we got a great presentation on how much families and kids enjoyed summer school, and I know my family really enjoyed summer school. My son had a blast. But any kind of information on, to what extent did we make a dent in missed learning opportunities here, based on the strategies that you all had shared before and the kids you were targeting? I'd love to hear more about that.
Would you like us to come to a?
I'm totally agnostic about how that happens, meeting, a memo, whatever.
I think a memo would be fine, yeah.
Great. I also recognize y'all may have a ton going on with the start of school. So if that's in 6 weeks, or it doesn't have to be tomorrow.
It might be nice to wait till we do our fall
Mhm,
readiness
assessment, yeah.
So we can see.
Great. That sounds like a wonderful, and so that could be a perfect time.
Mhm.
I think it's a great suggestion that Ben has, because if we looked at the cliff notes, so to speak, there was no summer scholars next year, budget-wise.
That was
There's some after next year.
We have next
We have next year, but
21,
not
summer
summer
22.
22.
22.
Yeah,
You don't think it's gonna happen?
Okay.
What can I
Speak
find?
out.
There's just not enough, there's not enough money.
Well,
Let's think about that.
think about that, but also think about the participation that we actually had, summer scholars.
Well, that's an issue that I
Because that's
would
a
like to
different kind of
raise,
thing. That
because,
participation was not as good as I wanted it to be.
Really?
oh, it was very, and again, I got a little mad at the administration too, because we couldn't get the right number.
I thought we had a bunch of
Everybody
good stuff.
kept saying, no, everybody kept
It wasn't
telling how many
equitable.
were enrolled. Then when you talk to people that are at the site,
It's different.
it was,
Huh.
attendance was different, so,
It
I
was
mean,
very
you're gonna have to,
Mhm.
that's in part what I'm saying, if we
To
have to,
justify the cost, there's
Yes.
got to be a really good impact.
well,
Yeah, that's right.
it didn't cost as much as they said it was gonna be, but it cost an awful lot of the money we will never see again. So, and part of it was having to pay the teachers that much, because rightfully so, they're not gonna
Right, they're
just
right.
say, I just think that that's a wonderful program. We have 2. We had one that could get in and loved it, and one that couldn't get in because even the deadline was like weeks before it was to start, and that doesn't help some of our clientele. but the one that did it loved it. And so you have to kind of be able to justify qualitatively, I think, as well as quantitatively. But I think that's going to be a hard sell.
And sustaining it, because I think some started and then some fell out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are a whole bunch of elements to that.
Some of the
And some of the
partnerships were
schools
great
should have
and
been
some
targeted.
weren't, but yeah.
You know what I mean? So some schools.
So it sounds like an important topic.
It is an important
Absolutely,
topic, because I
glad you
think
raised
it needs
Sounds
to
like
be.
And to your point, Ben, we're going to have to be able to have the administration do that kind of thing for everything we're doing. Because if we listen to the treasurer, this next budget is not based on requests anymore. It's like based on your favorite word, results.
And results. All righty, any other items under other?
Other.
If not, I think we're ready for our hearing of the public, if we have any.
Madam Chair, you now have any.
All right, nothing else to talk about, committee members?
You know, I started leaving an extra hour for this meeting.
I know,
So
but it
used to
and
be
then
you.
since I did that, every
Don't tell your wife, don't go home, think you're still here.
yeah, that is one phrase.
Officially, adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
You guys enjoyed it.